Since the last time we talked about recruiting in December, we've added Quavarius Crouch, outstanding athlete who could play either side of the ball. Very good student, good competitor. I know his high school team won the state championship his junior year. Unfortunately, he got injured this past year and didn't get to participate in very many games, but we're excited we have him. Eric Gray is another young man that has been a part of several state championship teams, won Mr. Football a couple of times, and again, another really good student. Both of these guys are mid-year. They've been here, they've been working, and we're excited to have them. We also added Albury Solomon, a transfer from Michigan. It's a young man that we had recruited, coming out of high school, knew the family, and sometimes in this day and time things don't work out, and we had previous relationships, and we're very fortunate to get him, and we're excited about having him. Deangelo Gibbs is another young, is another young man that we recruited coming out of high school, and he's a guy that really could play either side of the ball. And we'll see where he plays once he gets here, but we're glad we have him. Got Darnell Wright today, and Darnell's a guy that's a big, powerful man that could play any of the 5 spots on the offensive line. He looks like he probably weighs 310, but he actually weighs 335, so he holds it very well. But another good student, and a guy that won a state championship as a junior. So when you look at this class just finishing up, I think we've got guys that are used to having success, some big men, guys that are good with the ball in their hand, and I think they're going to add depth to our team to create competition. And I think it kind of capped off a class that, if you looked at starting back in December, guys that are really good students, good character, used to winning, leaders of their football teams, captains of their football team. And I think it's a great class to kind of lay the foundation for what we want to achieve here. With that, I'll take any questions.
What do you feel like this class sort of says about the state of the program if you guys are really close, strong, and get guys like Darnell and those guys?
Well, to have a good recruiting class, it first starts with tradition. You gotta kind of have tradition that people recognize the brand. So the Power T is still recognized across the country. You have to have facilities, which we have great facilities. Got to have administration that's behind what you're trying to get done. I think you have to have success in all sports, and I think one of the big selling points for us right now that has helped us in recruiting has been our men's basketball team. Everywhere I go, everybody wants to talk about our basketball program, and I think that's a great thing. Putting Tennessee on the map again, building the brand. So it takes good coaches. It takes everybody in the coaching staff. I think sometimes in recruiting, guys get singled out, whether it's the head coach, position coach. It takes everybody involved, from academic support to nutrition to the weight room, grad assistants, quality control, people in the recruiting office. Everybody's got to be willing to be bought in to recruit, because, guys come to school to get an education, first of all. It's an opportunity to play football. It's an opportunity to build a brand. To make connections. It's going to last a lifetime. And the one thing about the University of Tennessee is everybody is selling the university, and everybody is committed in the recruiting effort. And it takes everybody. It takes a great fan base. The passion of the fan base that, when you walk out here at Vol Walk and there's somewhere between 60 and 80,000 folks out there, it's a sight to see. Stadium that seats 102,000. In the way we travel. So all these things go into having an opportunity to recruit student athletes that want to win a championship at Tennessee.
Coach, back here in the back, you already adding Wanye Morris in the early signing period, but adding Darnell Wright today. How much of a priority was it for you to add those two big guys for the offensive line? And is it safe to say that you expect both of them to make an impact early on?
Well, we signed 5 offensive linemen. You mentioned 2 of them, Wanye, Darnell, Chris, Jackson, and Melvin. So if you look at these guys, they're all big men that are athletic. They can bend, they can slide their feet. They play the right way. They're all good students. They're coming out of winning programs. So it's a position that we need some depth. We need competition. But if you look at our football team, that's probably everywhere. There's probably not one position where you say, oh, we got enough guys. But I think with this class, we've hit some needs. So now we have some depth, and there will be a little more competition. So that'll make everybody better.
Coach, Darnell was a guy that had basically an offer from everybody that under the sun. What was it that you guys did, or what did you feel like you did well that kind of resonated with him from start to finish? And then, two, just talk about Brian Niedermeyer and his recruitment.
Well, I think just with every guy we've recruited, I think you've got to build relationships. If you've taken your son to a school and dropped them off, okay, you have a feeling of what I'm talking about here. So probably your most prized possession, you're giving them to somebody else for the next 4 years. They're not going to be under your roof anymore. And when you've done that, and lots of our guys, we have kids in college that play sports, we understand what that's all about. I think when you look at everybody involved in our program, I think they get it, they understand it, and they're willing to go the extra mile to build relationships to where people want to come here. I think it's obvious if in anything in life, if you enjoy the people that you're around, you build trust with the people that you're associated with. It gives a little more comfort to drop them off.
Steve and Patrick.
Look at the team recruiting rankings. I think like four of the top 5 teams or 5 of the top 6 are SEC schools. Most of the switches and flips we saw today involved SEC schools somehow. I know most of your experience is within this conference, but I'm just wondering, what is it about this league that kind of fosters all the competitiveness in recruiting year-round?
Well, I think in this part of the country, football is very important. You can just get out on the road on a Saturday and start riding. Doesn't matter where you're at, what state you're at in the Southeast. There's people playing football on all the football fields. Friday nights, you flip on the high school tapes and you see the fan bases, the passion of the people, the pride in the communities that they're from. So I think that has something to do with it.
Jeremy, you mentioned the 2 transfers in Solomon and Gibbs. Do you anticipate them having to sit out this year, or will you guys try to get a waiver for them for the NCAA to have them available this season?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think today should be more focused on about recruiting, and we'll worry about that when the time comes.
Jim, I know the rules are the rules and that you just kind of have to go with them, and you didn't make them. But with a day like today, after the early signing period and all that, how much different is a day like this where you're waiting on a handful of guys' signatures instead of maybe 25? Is that just logistically, how much has that changed today?
Well, I think the recruiting calendar has changed a lot of things. I think it's moved the timetable up. I think probably in the SEC, I don't know the exact number, but I would say somewhere between 77 and probably 85% of the guys were signed in the early signing period. So it obviously reduces the numbers, and you start recruiting ahead and planning ahead. But for a day like today, I think it's important how you finish a class. You got to hit your number, and I think we were able to do that. So I'm excited about the guys that we got coming in. I'm excited about today, and looking forward to the next class.
Mike Wilson, Ben Brown.
Jeremy, how do you plan to structure your coaching staff with the addition of a pair of offensive guys and subtraction of one defensive guy?
Right. Well, we really hadn't sat down and went over that. We've got everybody in here, and we've started working on recruiting. Hadn't divvied up areas. The first thing we wanted to do is finish up this recruiting class, and then we'll probably take maybe a weekend off and start on Monday and figure it out from there.
Coach, how much was peer recruiting, both with your current players as well as the early signees? How important has that been, and how much more of a factor was that this year than last year, now that everybody's had a year in this program under your staff and your regime?
Well, I think our current players really done a fantastic job in this cycle, and they're only going to continue to get better. And I think a lot of that goes with relationships. So, I think, if you look when guys come on campus, the great players want to play with great teams and with other great players. So I think the coaching staff and all the things that I've named, have a lot to do with it. But your best recruiters are your current players, and I think our guys done a really good job in this cycle.
Jeremy, I know you can't comment specifically on a guy who hasn't signed yet. Obviously, there was another marquee announcement today on national TV. Are you guys still expecting another addition to this 2019 class before it's all said and done?
Well, I don't think it'd be smart to tell everybody else our business, so we'll just leave it at that.
You mentioned adding the 5 offensive linemen. I guess how much at that position in particular was it a priority to add some more talent and depth there?
I think depth is the big thing, and it's for every position on our team. We need competition, and I think we've hit a lot of guys in the spots that we need, and we need more depth. We'll continue. We need another really good recruiting class in this next year, but I think that with the offensive line position, first of all, if you don't have big men, you can't just go pick one off the street, right? So you better have some if you're going to be able to practice, first of all, which is a thing that we ran into a little bit last spring when we moved some D linemen to O linemen and things like that. Because if you don't have 5 O linemen, it's hard to get a linebacker ready, a defensive back, a quarterback, but I think we've got depth now, and our numbers are getting closer to where they should be at that position, so that should help us in developing our football team moving forward.
Any more questions? Wes and David.
Jeremy, how do you feel about the numbers at the running back position that y'all have after this class, or where you are right now at least?
Well, you kind of look at it. We had guys last year, coming back with Ty and Tim, Jeremy Banks, and we've added Eric Gray. And at the end of the year we moved Carlin to the running back position. So, I think we're getting closer to being, at the right number at that spot.
David and Patrick, last question.
But the problem with that is the next year there's going to be guys graduate and moving on, so you can't fix it in one cycle.
Is Jeremy at running back now, or is Banks, or do you have you all made a determination?
No, we hadn't even talked about it yet.
Jeremy, with this class, what position group do you think you're going to see the most early impact? And also, the guys who have been on campus, what have been your early impressions of those guys?
Well, the big thing in recruiting, you do the best you can to find out the information. You got to trust your evals. It helps if you can see them in person. It helps if you can get them in camp. Knowing the information, it's hard to predict how a 17 or 18-year-old is going to be when he's 21 or 22. You do the best that you can doing that. What looks good today might not be so good in a couple of years, and maybe what don't look as good today might be the best thing in a couple of years. So, and that's everywhere across the country. So, we'll see. I think we've done our staff done a good job in evaluating these guys. The guys that are here right now have been working hard in the weight room. And which is no surprise to me. But that's kind of the expectation here, and I think these guys have jumped right in, and instead of guys having to bring them along, they've jumped in there and been equal too.
Jeremy, it seems like you guys in this class have a few guys that maybe are versatile enough to play on either side of the ball. Is that something you guys look for as a staff when you're trying to evaluate players, guys that can play multiple positions either side of the ball?
Well, if you're going to sign an offensive lineman, it helps that he can play all 5 spots. If you're going to sign, a running back, it helps that he might have the size to play linebacker or vice versa. If you're signing a linebacker, for me, I'd rather sign the guy that's a 4-for-4 guy that can play all 4 positions. A defensive back that could play any of the spots. I think it just brings value to them, value to the team, and the versatility there. And then most of the guys that are used to handling the ball in high school, whether they play offense in college or they play defense in college, if you're used to handling the ball, then you've got good ball skills. So, I said a lot about defensive backs. The guys who pick off a lot of passes on Friday nights pick off a lot on Saturday, and if they pick them off on Saturday, they pick them off on Sunday. I've never seen a defensive back that didn't pick off passes on Friday nights all of a sudden start picking them off on Saturdays.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.